So, how did you get started?
I moved back to Georgia from California in 2019. I was doing an internship with two really big bands that I absolutely adore, and moved back here and really didn't know what I wanted to do. And from the time I was 18 years old, I was working with my father as a production assistant. Got to tour the country and really meet a lot of cool people. And then, out of nowhere, I decided I wanted to go to school in Arizona for audio engineering, which was really fun. And it was cool because I got to figure out, most importantly, what I didn't want to do. I think everyone is so set nowadays on what they want to do. And the biggest part is figuring out as much as what you want to do and what you're good at. It's what you don't want to do and what you're not good at. And to be honest, I was not a good engineer. It's a very meticulous job and a very patient type of sitting down all day, almost like deer hunting, and I'm more of a get up and go kind of person. So it just didn't fit. But I figured out how to learn the craft enough to be dangerous without being necessarily professional. So it was really eye-opening in how the whole music industry worked. Long story short, I moved back to Georgia, didn't know what I wanted to be, and my sister actually pulled me aside and said, "You've done everything fun, or you've done everything in the industry except for the most fun part, and that's performing." And to be honest with you, I had stage fright, and I conquered that just by doing open mics over and over again in my local bars in Cobb County, and eventually found a guitar player and started playing with him, and then it started to build up and turn into a full band, and been very, very fortunate to have a career build up and kind of be on its way, even though it's still building up slowly. It's something I'm very proud of.
All right, good stuff. So, who are your musical influences?
My musical influences, contrary to popular belief or what most people would think I would say, it's actually probably between Lemmy Kilmister from Motorhead, Ozzy Osbourne, Black Sabbath obviously, Bradley Noel from Sublime, and I mean the list goes on and on. I'm an old rocker, I like old rock stuff, and I'm 22 years old, but I'm an old soul, so I like 70s all the way up to 90s.
Good stuff. How did 2020 COVID pandemic affect your business?
Okay, so I got started during the pandemic. So I started my first paid show. I was playing in January all the way up till about April, just doing open mics for free. And my first paid show was in Central Florida in July 14th. And basically it was the only open up state. So we got to play there, no mask or anything like that. And it was, it was a little bit of like coming back to normalcy, but I've never known technically what normal is because of the fact that I started this during the pandemic. So it's been, seeing it open up, back up, especially in the South, it's been really great to kind of see people coming back together and, getting out of the houses and coming back and, having drinks and listening to good music, hopefully.
What is your goal for 2022?
So my goal for 2022, I learned a lot of things in 2020 and 2021 especially, but you learn a lot more from your mistakes than you do from the successes. And the thing I want to do in 2022 is be more of myself and not necessarily put on this front or sound that I think everyone else wants to hear or expect to hear. Obviously I want them to enjoy the music, but I want them to know, hey, this is me, this is Tristan Tritt, this is not anybody else. It's very important to me to give as much of a genuine performance as possible and create art and create music that people relate to the same way I related to my favorite artists, and believe it or not, I was actually, the weird kid in school. I was always, kind of out there, and my heroes were Marilyn Manson and Ozzy and stuff like that. So I had a deep resignation with the outsiders of the music world. So I always wanted to create that kind of craft. But in the beginning, I felt this pressure to just do things that everyone else wanted me to do, and for a long time, I kind of had this resentment towards myself that I'm not doing what I'm supposed to be doing. So my goal for 2022 is to honestly be the best me that I can be and make other people happy with a genuine art that comes from the heart, you know, and it comes from who I am, and it tells a story, and hopefully resonates with people, like I said, the same way my heroes resonate with me.
How has the response been from fans since you started performing?
The response has been great. I feel like I conquered a lot of different audiences because, you know, anything from the bigger crowds who are typically in the older demographic, you know, all the way from the 35 age range up to the younger crowd, which is, you know, 18 to 21 up. Their expectations were always, you know, thinking that I was going to be this country guy or this country rock guy, and then, you know, maybe do a couple of Skynyrd songs or Tom Petty, but essentially throughout the set becoming more of this rocker and a high energy performer, which is what I love the most. And the response, the number one thing I get told the most is I was not expecting that, and in a good way. So that to me is a, you know, it's a positive sign that I think I'm doing the right thing of going more for the genuine rock sound and these high energy performances, as opposed to, you know, being this cookie cutter mold of what people think I'm supposed to be.
What is the best part about making music?
The best part about making music is honestly, it's no different than a picture, where it's capturing a moment and a specific thought in your head, or it's a specific peak or valley in your life. And I've wrote songs, you know, about being in love. I've wrote songs about falling out of love. I've wrote songs about, you know, dealing with demons, you know, depression, suicide, and even sometimes just writing them vicariously through another person's life. That to me is one of the most exceptional things about music, is the fact that I can tell stories that aren't necessarily my own, but other people, maybe, you know, friends that I've been around, family members, and really kind of depict what they're going through just as much as I'm depicting what I'm going through if I'm writing a song, whether it be, you know, autobiographical or it's a, you know, just a fictional story. So there's a lot of wiggle room where you can, you know, have fun with your creative process.
All right. Who was your first guitar teacher?
My first guitar teacher, I can't remember his last name. His name was James, and it was at Jackson Music in Douglasville. I'll never forget. And I went down there, and I had been 8 or 9 years old. Didn't know what I wanted to do guitar-wise. I just knew I wanted to shred. And obviously you got to take the steps and learn chords, but believe it or not, my father, he's a horrible guitar teacher. No disrespect to him. But he was self-taught, so he could just play something, and then he'd basically look at me and be like, do that. I can't do that. You know, I'm not nearly the guitar player that he is, but at the same time, he really made it clear to me what was important. He said, stop focusing so much on the shredding and the solos. That will come. Focus on the rhythm, and, you know, get the meat and potatoes first before you go straight to the dessert. And that right there was probably one of the greatest guitar lessons I ever got.
Jackson's Music Store. I got my first lesson there at 15.
Exactly.
Great place.
Heck yeah.
Great place. So, what do you do when you're not performing?
Man, I've got a girlfriend, so she takes up a lot of my time and money. Just playing. But no, I like to read a lot. I'm actually really big into reading like business biographies and, you know, music autobiographies and stuff like that. I love being outside. I love outdoor stuff, fishing, hunting, and you know, hanging around friends and family. That's my bread and butter. So that's pretty much what I do. I wish I could say, you know, I have some cool hobbies, but honestly, that's
not
it.
the coolest hobby. So
Not the coolest.
You mentioned earlier you get stage fright. So what do you do to deal with it? What do you do to deal with the jitters right before a show?
You know, the funny thing about that, I've always been told if you don't get nervous before every show, you need to stop doing it, because you know, it's a good thing to be nervous. It's just what you do with it and how you know, use that fear. And the funniest part about playing live was, you know, when I was doing these first open mics, I'd play 3 songs, and 2 of them my hands would be shaking so much that, like, I could barely get through it. But this weird thing happened where, especially when I had a band or another musician next to me and I kind of knew that, you know, I wasn't alone, your brain just kind of says, okay, this is home, and you kind of zone out and forget that you're surrounded by a bunch of strange faces just staring at you, and you deal with it. And to me, that's been one of the coolest things, because it's like, even if I had the worst show ever, if my voice cracks, or, you know, if I trip on stage or anything like that, you're not going to die. You're not going to explode and, you know, spontaneously combust. It's just, you let it roll off the back, you learn from the mistakes, or you just, you know, laugh it off. And if you're not nervous, the people in front of you aren't nervous. But if you go up there and you're shaking like a leaf, they're going to be right there with you. So I have to do my best to reflect the emotions of the audience that I want and that I know they want. And that pretty much is how you conquer it. You just got to do it. You got to put your foot one foot in front of the other and basically say, I'm going to stand on this stage no matter how nervous, and I'm going to make these words come out of my mouth. And if it's shaky or if it's, not the best performance, keep going. I've got, depending on how long a show, I've got dozens of songs I have to play through, and I get to play through, so you can always redeem yourself, So the stage fright thing, it really was more of a monster that I created in my head than it was an actual problem. And once you conquer that, you realize it's easy, man.
Do you feel obligated to play country music because of your last name?
I used to, because of who my dad is, and because of the name that or the weight that the name carries. I could see, like I said, this expectation they had of what they thought I was supposed to be. And my last name being Tritt, they expected, long-haired dude to come out and strum country songs on a guitar. I'm halfway there with the long hair. But I was much more into, like I said, the style of rock and roll and the rebellion, and that always spoke to me way more. So I felt the pressure, but did I act on it as much? Not necessarily. I definitely found out who I was a lot more in the last 2 years, and I think moving forward, I'm going to make sure I create a product that reflects that.
Do you remember the first live show that you attended that you weren't performing at? You were just an audience member?
Yeah, I think the first big live show I did that wasn't, because I was a tour bus kid. I grew up with my dad, but the first band I saw that really wasn't him, me and my brother went to go see Motley Crue, and Alice Cooper opened up, and it was a big thing. And man, I remember seeing that show, and I was like, this is such a different world, from country. And it's so energetic. Not saying country's not energetic, but it was more of my type of energetic, pyro's going everywhere, and there's, everyone's raising up the horns, and it was I felt at home, and that was a very special moment for me, because like I said, I'm 22 years old, but I'm an old soul. So seeing these bands from the 80s and 70s like Alice Cooper and Motley Crue, man, it was surreal.
If you could tour any continent, which one would it be?
If I could tour any continent
Other than the USA. Right.
Other than the USA, I'd have to say Europe.
Yep.
Obviously, because most of my heroes are British born, so it would be really cool to, be at the same places where like Zeppelin and Sabbath and all these guys got started, the Beatles, Rolling Stones. And though there's issues in the place right now, Australia would be somewhere that I'd always want to go to, because they've got that similar, British vibe, but with a little bit more sun and less rain,
So I've got 2 more questions. If you had to switch careers, what would you choose?
To be honest, I think, because it's the only thing I really know other than working in a car wash at Hollister as a kid, the music industry has always been what I've been, raised into and been a part of, and fortunate enough to be a part of. So I think I'd always do something in the music industry, whether it be production or management or, developing an artist and really bringing them up. I love this industry so much, and I think it's one of the last universal industries left. It brings people together, and live music and recordings can bring people out of the worst depressions, and it can also amplify the best, moments of your life, whether it be a baby being born or, your family member coming back from, being on tour in Iraq or anything like that. It's the universal language. So music industry, 100%.
So last question, is there an album in the works?
Believe it or not, I have a lot going on in 2022, and I'm in talks. I can't say anything right now, but talking with some very talented musicians, and hopefully going to get something really, really cool out to you guys by 2022. I'm actually heading up to Nashville very soon to try and get the ball rolling a little bit, but we've been writing like crazy, and I'm extremely proud of these new songs that I've been working on, and the gentlemen and people that have been working with me, they've done a fantastic job, excellent musicians and songwriters. So absolutely, 2022, there's going to be some truly, truly cool stuff coming out, coming y'all's way.